What's up, guys? Welcome back to the mental game fundamentals. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to set motivating, attractive goals that help you keep playing well even when you're running poorly. But before we get started, I really want to thank you for sending us so many high quality questions. They really help make the series more lively. They help me to make more relevant examples when I'm trying to explain a point. So please keep them coming. Send us your questions on the Discord channel or in the comment section. And at some point I will answer all of them. Now let's get started. Now you probably already know that it's really important to set the right goals, but there's actually quite a few traps you can fall into. Our education system definitely does not teach us how to set right goals because it's all about checking off certain tasks and reaching certain numbers, which is actually quite similar to those crazy grinding challenges that poker players come up with again and again. And they are basically the perfect example of how to not set a goal. For one, because they don't consider the bigger meaning behind them. Most these grinding challenges are only about winning a certain amount of money, grinding out a certain amount of hands, and don't consider why you're doing it. Why do you want to win that money? Why do you want to grind out that number of hands? And does it even make sense? Then grinding challenges usually are about trying to force yourself to do something which you don't want to do. And as we will learn later, good goals are actually something that you want to do. And lastly, the results of grinding challenges are not completely within your control. Of course, not the amount of money you win, but also the amount of hands you play, because you might get sick or you might sleep poorly for a few nights, and therefore the outcome of this challenge is not completely within your control. If you think back to the first video, I talked about the ACT model, and today, of course, we are at the letter C. We're talking about how to commit to relevant, motivating goals. And if you think back to the PERMA model, also from the first episode, we're actually going to talk about 3 of the 5 most important areas for performance and well-being today. Engagement. If you set the right goal, you are way more likely to get into that sweet flow state where you forget everything around you and where you become fully one with your task, which of course will not only improve your performance, but also your enjoyment while doing it. Then, of course, we'll talk about meaning. If a goal has a bigger meaning behind it, you're much more likely to stay motivated even when things get tough, even when you're running poorly. For example, if your meaning behind winning money is supporting your family or buying a house for your grandma or traveling the world and living a free lifestyle, then of course it will be much easier to stay motivated. And lastly, we'll talk about accomplishment. If you are only chasing that one big goal at the end of the horizon, you're setting yourself up for constant frustration. That means you need also to set small everyday goals that you also need to celebrate. If you set goals but never celebrate them, then and if you never pat yourself on the shoulder if you check them off, then you're not feeling like you're accomplishing something. And that's a really important feeling to keep going, to stay motivated. We'll talk about that as well. You probably have seen this chart before. A good goal is challenging, but neither too hard nor too boring. If you're playing too low in stakes, or if you're never working on the complex theory concepts, if you're always only doing the easy stuff, then of course you will get bored, which will impair your performance. And on the other hand, if you overwhelm yourself, if you're playing too high in stakes, if you're playing too many tables, or if you are working on concepts that you don't fully understand yet, then of course you will be overwhelmed, which will impair your performance even more. A good goal should be challenging, should be something that you want to do, but it should be neither too easy nor too hard. Only then will you be able to get into the flow state. When setting and reviewing goals, it's really important to keep track of all types of goals. Not only in poker, but in life in general, people tend to focus way too much on the short-term goals. They also tend to set the wrong short-term goals, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But a very common issue is that people lose sight of their long-term goals and their vision. Now, your vision is actually not a concrete goal, but your vision is the way your life looks like, or it's actually very graphic. It can be pictures that come up when you think of what you want your life to look like. That doesn't even need to be a 100% realistic, but it's a picture of your ideal life that you want to live if you live according to your values. If you think back to the second episode, your vision and your values are very closely connected. Your vision is what kind of people do you surround yourself with? What does your ideal work day look like? What does your ideal holiday look like? Where are you spending those days? Who's surrounding you? What are you doing? What kind of principles are you living according to? And yeah, it's called vision for a reason. It can be actually very, very graphic. And we're going to do an extra exercise to make your vision more lively and to flesh it out in an extra video, because it's a very powerful tool. A lot of professional sports people and successful businessmen use a strong vision to motivate themselves. But that's such a great and powerful tool that we're actually going to do an extra video on it. For now, just know your vision is the pictures that come to mind, what you want your life to look like. A good goal is something that you want to do. Unfortunately, we have this tendency that we try to avoid things we don't want to experience. For example, most people will not set the goal of, I want to play well, I want to be focused, I want to stay concentrated and calm during the session. But instead, they set the goal of not trying to tilt. And that, of course, puts the focus on something negative and basically leads to you thinking about something negative the whole time. Your thoughts will start to circle around that topic of tilt. And that's not very motivating. If instead you put the focus on something positive, on the thing or the state you want to achieve, feeling calm, feeling collected, feeling in the flow state, that's a much better and much more motivating goal, because you're striving towards a state or towards a goal that you find meaningful, that you enjoy. And that, of course, is much better for your motivation. Setting the right goals will help you cultivate the growth mindset instead of the fixed mindset. And cultivating your growth mindset will help you set better goals. Now, what do I mean by growth versus fixed mindset? In a fixed mindset, you think skills and intelligence are static, they are given at birth, they are genetically predetermined, and therefore putting in any effort, trying to improve, trying to learn is not worth it. While in a growth mindset, you think skills and intelligence, they do have a genetic part, they do have a genetic component, but they are only the starting point, they can be developed, and therefore effort is not only necessary, but can actually be fun, because you can set challenging goals that might look hard in the beginning, but you realize that you're able to learn, you're able to improve, and therefore overcome those challenges. In a fixed mindset, you think of success as being something absolute, being the best or achieving a certain result. The poker player who wins the most money, who gets the most recognition, who is the most famous, is the best poker player. While in a growth mindset, you focus more on your own personal development. Your type of success is becoming better, learning, improving, and tackling challenges, becoming more confident in yourself. In a fixed mindset, of course, you're trying to avoid challenges, and you think of mistakes as a sign of your incompetence. If you make a mistake, if you make a bad call, you're going to talk angrily to yourself. You're going to put yourself down, tell yourself how terrible you are at poker, and that you just simply should quit the game. While in a growth mindset, you actively seek challenges because you know they can be fun and they can help you improve as a person and improve your life, improve your poker game. And you see as mistakes as an opportunity to learn. You realize making mistakes is completely human, is completely normal, because you're actively seeking these challenges that are not too easy, which of course will mean that you will make mistakes, but you see them as an opportunity to learn. Mistakes can show you where you can still improve, where your poker theory or your mental game still has some potential for improvement. And that, of course, means that you will keep trying even though you fail. In a fixed mindset, you are more likely to look for excuses or blame others to protect your self-worth. The most obvious example being the sides are rigged, everyone is lucky, you're the only unlucky person in the world, and therefore it's not your fault. Working on your game, working on your mental state is not worth it. It's only about the luck and you can't do anything about it. While in a growth mindset, you are trying to develop a realistic picture of your skills. You're trying to get a realistic self-assessment. And that means you're not only assessing yourself, but you're also actively seeking feedback from others. Ideally, you're not assessing your skill level after a terrible session, but instead you do them in a quiet moment. You maybe on a day off where you're not even playing, because your assessment can of course be very much influenced by the last session, whether you're running poorly or you're running well. A realistic self-assessment is detached from your current results, and that, of course, is easier to reach if you get feedback from others. Maybe not only on your strategic play, not only do hand history review that are detached from the circumstances or the context, but maybe also do a live play session where your peers can not only see your play, but can give their opinion on your mental state, whether you seem to be calm and collected and playing well, or whether your body language or what you're saying seems tense and tilted. So there's much more feedback you can get than only the quality of your poker play. In a fixed mindset, you're way more likely to feel threatened by other people's success and feel like you're constantly being judged. Not only being judged as a poker player, but as a person in general. It not only probably will make you play worse if you're under that stress of trying to impress other people, of trying to look good. If you're only trying to reach a certain amount of money you win to impress others, that will put a lot of extra stress on you. Plus, it creates this unpleasant atmosphere of toxic competitiveness. And if you think about the great rivalries in professional sports, yes, some of them really genuinely dislike each other, like for example Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan, but most of them, they're actually friendly competitive. If you look at, for example, Messi and Ronaldo, of course they are fiercely competitive when they play against each other, but they're also, after the game, they are very friendly with each other. And I think creating that friendly competitiveness is actually a win-win situation. You're challenging each other, you're bringing out the best play in each other, but without all the negative atmosphere. So in a growth mindset, you can not only develop that friendly competitiveness, but you can even see other successful people as a potential inspiration or support. If someone is improving rapidly, moving up the stakes rapidly, then there's something which he's doing very well, which you can learn. So you can actively seek others who are doing well, who are improving, who have more experience than you, to learn from them. And many people will actually feel flattered by that. If you ask someone if they can help you, they are actually pretty likely to help you. Just reach out to a few people who you think of as an inspiration, where you would like to know what are they doing better than everyone else, what can I learn from them, and create that win-win situation, that friendly competitiveness where you're not feeling like you're taking away from each other, but instead improving each other and supporting each other. And that's not only more likely to make you successful, but also way more likely to help you enjoy playing poker and interacting with other poker players. Probably the most common problem when setting goals is that people simply try to tackle too many challenges at once. Setting too many goals, trying to do it all quickly. And that's setting yourself up for failure. We already talked about that a goal should be challenging and it should be personally relevant to you. So ideally, you are able to identify that one goal that would make the biggest difference in your poker game, in your mental game, or in your life in general. And since it should be challenging, then of course you need to be able to fully commit to it, focus on it, put a lot of time and energy into it. And that means there's not much time and energy left for other goals. But if you go through that process of prioritizing again and again, you will realize you don't need to tackle all the challenges at once, because there's always that one most important goal, and identifying that and working focused on it is much better than trying to work on 3 goals at once. So I'll get back to that for your homework, but I found this quote to be very, very true. In order to say yes, to really say yes, to fully commit to one thing, you have to say no to everything else. And at this point, I'm going to again recommend the book Essentialism by Greg McEwen, which I already mentioned in the live stream with Fernando. It's a really great book and it will help you prioritize goals. So please find that one goal which is the most important right now, work on it, and only if you feel like you're becoming competent at it. For example, I think by far the most common, most important goals that my clients set in the beginning is working on their health. Because working on your health, working on your diet, on your physical exercise, and on your sleep will affect every other area of your life. So it's very common for my clients to say, this is right now the most important goal because it will influence pretty much everything else I do in my life. So only if you are starting to become really competent, where planning your diet or going to the gym doesn't require effort every day, where it becomes a habit, where there's not as much as resistance anymore, only then should you commit to the next important goal. So much for the theory, let's get to work. For your homework, please write down your most important goal for poker and for your life in general. So now I just said identify the one most important goal, but actually you can do that for different areas of your life. So as your homework, write down your most important poker goal and your most important goal for the rest of your life. And in order to formulate those goals, you can use those questions. Ask yourself, do you want to, or do you feel like you have to? Is this something that you really want to do, that's according to your values? Or is it something that other people expect of you, where you feel like you have to do it? Ask yourself, is it an avoidance goal or is it an approach goal? Are you striving towards something that you really, really want to? Are you striving toward a goal that feels good? Or are you trying to avoid something that feels bad? Is it result or process oriented? Is it about learning, improving, and challenging yourself? Or is it trying to reach a certain number? You can ask yourself, how will you start? And please be specific about it, because if a goal is very vague, there's more room for excuses. If you're telling yourself, oh yeah, maybe, probably I should go to the gym a little more often, then you're not very likely to do it. But if instead you ask yourself, you tell yourself, I'm going to go to the gym at these days of the week, at that time, and this will be my gym buddy who I'm going with, then of course you're much more likely to do so. Then you can ask yourself, who can help you? Who can be that inspiring support? Who has more experience than you? Who went through the same process, or who is starting to go through the same process? Who has the same goals as you? Ask yourself that question and find that support, because no matter which goal you set, every one of them will be much easier if you have help. Then you should ask yourself, how will you review? How often do you sit down and ask yourself, is my current goal working for me? Is it motivating enough? Is it relevant enough for me? Or are there certain problems coming up again and again? Is there maybe a different way to achieve the same goal? And also ask yourself, how are you going to celebrate if you reach that goal? It's really important to recognize your own success and tell yourself that you're doing well, that you're improving, that you're actually making progress, and that you are not still very, very far away from that big goal. And lastly, ask yourself, how will you react to setbacks? Because they are inevitable. They are just part of human life, especially if you're actively seeking challenges. Setbacks will happen, and you will most likely feel like you're back to zero, which is almost never true. Because if you already tried, if you already practiced, if you already worked on that goal, once you experience a setback, you're not starting at zero. It might feel like that, but it's not actually true. And ask yourself, how will you deal with that setback? Will you criticize yourself for it? Or will you tell yourself, that's just perfectly fine if you challenge yourself? It's completely normal to make mistakes and to experience setbacks. And that's it for today's video. If you want to share your goals, I would absolutely love to give you feedback on them. You can just put them in the comments or in the Discord channel and I will get back to you. See you in the next video. Thank you for tuning in.